Well, hello, everybody. I am Janai Thornton, and I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am that you are here with us this evening for our first pink table talk. Look, can y'all see the pink when we do the wide shot? See the pink? We had to get a little shiz for y'all, a little fancy for y'all tonight. But I'm excited that we're talking about one of my favorite topics, something that the journey that I'm on too. What I'm passionate about is how to retire on your own terms. Just saying that out loud makes me feel good. Not scared. It makes me feel really good. So again, thank you for joining us this evening. And of course, if you're here, you've had to come through the Thank Me Later community. Maybe you follow me on social media or you follow Thank Me Later. But here at Thank Me Later, we're here to empower Black women to take control of their finances and prepare for life events. And we are committed to guiding you all the way through your financial journey. Want to take a minute and introduce our two guests. I feel so excited and special and lucky that we have two people with us this evening. So in the studio here in Atlanta, we have Mechelle Davis, who's a yoga therapist. She is our mindfulness SME, subject matter expert within the Thank Me Later community. My personal yoga therapist as well. Yes. So Mechelle, thank you for being here with us this evening.
Thank you, Janai. This is my pleasure and absolute honor to be here live in studio with the Thank Me Later community.
Well, we are happy that you're here, Mechelle, with over 30 years of experience with mindfulness and wholeness and all things to really keep us on track and help us do the inner work before we do all this outer work. And so coming live from Florida, we have Ms. Dayanara Tater. Y'all know she was with us just a couple of weeks ago. In fact, Mechelle and Dayanara were both with us a couple of weeks ago. Dayanara, hey there. How you doing, Dayanara?
Be here. Excited.
I know. I'm so happy that you're here. Dayanara Tater, again, she's a financial consultant with Equitable Advisors, over 20 years of experience in the whole financial investment world. So we're super grateful that you're here. And thank you for being on the journey with us for part 2 of this.
Thank you for having me. I love what you're doing with Thank Me Later. So I'm so glad to be a part of it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being so generous with your time. I know you have a lot going on, work, carting around those kids. So again, thank you for being here. So there's a couple documents that I want to make sure that you all have access to, and we're going to drop them in the chat. So we have our financial independence checklist. We're going to drop that in the chat. And we also have our April handout. So every month we have a handout for y'all. So please make sure that you download those. Please make sure that you share those. Don't be overwhelmed by the information. You can just take it in bite-sized pieces, but we want to make sure you're engaging with us. But, want to make sure that you have that takeaway that when you're at work, you're at lunch, in the evening, you just kind of want to brush up a little bit and again share some information. That information is out there for you. All right, so let me let you know what we're going to talk about this evening. So a couple things. We're going to take a few minutes just to recap on our first mindfulness session that we had. And again, it's just so we can level set and again begin to do our inner work, as Mechelle would say, the first part of the work before we get to the tactical work. So we're going to spend a few minutes on that. And then what we're going to do for the second half is we're really going to focus on some of the tactical things. We have some very specific tips and advice for you, no matter if you think you are so far behind, even thinking about retirement stresses you out.
Yeah.
Or if you're somebody, you might be on the other end of the gamut. Maybe you are 10 or 20 years away, but this is something that's important to you.
It should be.
Amen. Absolutely.
Should be.
Yeah. And it's certainly a priority.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's funny how quickly, Mechelle, it comes up on you.
Don't tell me. Don't tell me.
You're like, oh my God.
What
Dayanara,
happened?
you think you got all this time.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I am 50.
I
don't. Right. That's exactly it. I don't. So you have to be very intentional with this process. You really do. So we're going to make sure, again, no matter where you are on the gamut, that we have some specific advice for you. And then, of course, we're going to have Q&A. So again, please continue to drop your questions in the chat. We want to make sure that we get to all of you. So, ladies, I think we're just going to jump right in.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's
talk
do
about it.
So from the mindfulness perspective, the reason, Dayanara and Mechelle, why I thought this was so important was because I know how much fear a lot of us have around this topic, because a lot of us feel hopeless.
Yeah.
Like it's just not possible. The number's too big. We're not prepared. Sorry about that little feedback. So I just want to make sure that people who, again, no matter where they are on the gamut, if we can just take a couple of minutes, Mechelle, and particularly I want to talk to that woman first who's like, it's just too late. I'm just too far behind. What can she begin to do to get her head and her heart right so she could begin to do some of the other exterior work that she needs to take care of?
That's a great question. And the first thing I'm saying is stop saying that. When you started the Thank Me Later conversation tonight, you said, I want to say this to myself and say it out loud. So what you say to yourself is so important. And if you're saying it over and over again, you're basically writing that script. And so let's get a new script and say what makes you feel good. If that's one that does not, and it doesn't, let's create a new script.
And so when you think about getting the right mindset, I hear you talk about the new script, and obviously our words are very powerful.
Very.
Because now we begin to live that out. What are some other things that we can do if we are feeling overwhelmed, or we don't know where to start, or we know that we have this negative story in our head? Any other advice on some specific steps of what we can do?
The first step that always comes to mind for me is breathing. Our life started with the breath.
Right.
Everything you will ever need is packed in that breath. And so if you can just breathe, if you can just take a moment to just be still and say, I just want to take inhales and exhales nice and slow, and repeat that and see what happens. That's the first tip I start with the breath. And of course, there's many other things you can do, like the yoga, exercise, taking a walk outside, just looking up in the sky, earthing, going outside and take your shoes off and just stand on the earth and grounding yourself.
Right.
But start with the breath.
Right. Always step one. So, Dayanara, I'm curious. I know when you're talking to clients and you're talking to people who are afraid, let alone this tactical planning, what are you normally telling them so they can really kind of get their footing and be in a position to have a real conversation and begin to start doing some planning with you?
I actually start the same as Mechelle, breathe. But after the breathing comes, let's break it down. And let's begin, because it is unattainable to say, I would like to have $1 million tomorrow, right? That is overwhelming. That's never going to happen. But it is possible to say, I can save $100 this week. And so when you break it down into achievable steps, you can climb those steps and eventually climb that mountain, right? It is a mountain, but you have to take it a little bit at a time so you're not overwhelmed, and then you feel hopeless, and then you just quit altogether or don't start. So I would say breathe, break it down, and let's begin.
I like that.
And it's funny because I hear so many women say, because they feel that they're so far behind, that they've psyched themselves out where they end up doing nothing, let alone the $100 a week or the $100 a month that Dayanara is talking about. They just completely take themselves out of the game. Yeah. And they took themselves out of the game.
They did.
No one else took them out of the game.
I have to look at the source.
Right.
Who did this? Who did this?
You got to own that.
Got to own that.
Right. So let's take a minute to talk about the poverty mindset.
Okay.
So if people struggle with it. And, you know, that's coming from a place of lack. I think many of us have struggled with it.
And still do.
And still do. No matter where you are on the gamut.
Right.
What are some things that people can do to recognize that? So instead of just thinking, oh, I just grew up this way, or, you know, my family is this way, understanding that they have the poverty mindset. And then again, what can they begin to do about that?
Well, you said the magic word, understand or recognize that you have it. And sometimes when you're in something, you don't recognize it. It's normal. It's a normal life. And so as you start to notice the life or the lifestyle that you want to live, and it doesn't fit within that poverty mindset, now we have to breathe, begin, and execute.
Right. Taking some of Dayanara's.
Yeah, I like that.
Right. I say replace it with something. You know, some people might have habits that are, oops, my light went out. Bad habits. Let's say I eat cookies and I really want to get away from that. It's hard to just say stop it. But if you say, you know what, I'm going to replace it with dates. Dates are sweet and they're healthy. Let me replace it with something. Then mentally you can maybe achieve that easier than just quitting, right? So going from poverty mindset, let's go to abundance mindset. Let's replace that. Every time I find myself thinking about something that's negative or has that poverty mindset or limiting, let's think abundance. Let's replace that word altogether. Nope, abundance. Let's visualize it.
Yes, very good.
And I think that's a great place to start, because now at least you're self-aware too.
Yes,
you know, you're like, oh
absolutely.
my gosh, I'm having that thought again.
I'm thinking it again.
Oh my gosh, I'm having that tightness in my chest again.
There it is again.
There it is again. Oh, okay. Now this is the opportunity for me to begin to shift.
And that's a good way to recognize, because you have a physiological response in your body to everything.
Right.
And so when you start to know, for me, if it's the tightening of the chest, for others, it could be, you know, feeling something in the navel, butterflies, you know, your neck.
Right.
You know, but start to know where it shows up in your body.
Right. And now you're beginning to get in tune with yourself.
Yes.
Okay. That's really powerful. Ladies, this is the real step number one. This is where we have to begin, because we have some external work to do. So we want to make sure, again, our head and our heart is right.
In the right place.
And that because it's not a one and done thing. You're going to have to continuously work on this. It's the practice.
Process.
Yeah. And it's the practice.
The practice.
Too. Right.
Yeah.
It's definitely the practice. Love that. Okay. So, once again, I want to make sure, if you haven't already, that you are accessing the documents that are in the chat, because we have a financial independence checklist. Please do not feel overwhelmed. It is 4 pages long, so it is not meant to scare you. Different sections will pertain to you. We've got definitions of words out there, whether you are 20 years away, 10 years away, 5 years away, no matter where you are, we have a checklist for you. So of course you may want to take notes. And of course we're going to post this in the community. Give us about a week and we'll get that out there. But we want to make sure that you just kind of have something to follow this evening. All right, Dayanara, I have a tactical question for you.
Right.
Let's get to tactics. So that we're going to take essentially like a 4-prong approach here. Again, we're going to start talking to the women who feel that they're too late. And then we're going to also end up talking to the women who feel, you know, based on where they are in their life, that retirement maybe is about 20 years away. Plenty of time. I got time to plan, right?
That's what you think today.
I know. That's what I was thinking, Lord. So, Dayanara, let's talk to the women who think it's too late first. Who maybe because of their age, you know, maybe they're over 50, maybe because of some life events, a divorce, a death, something that has happened. Can you give us a couple of tactical things those particular women need to be doing to begin to move in a different direction and begin to prepare themselves?
First, the mindset. 50 is the new 40, right? Because we're living longer. So the reality is life expectancies have increased. So even if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm 50, retirement is in 10 years, you have 30, 40 years of life ahead of you. We have time. So that's first, the mindset. Next, no matter how far or close, I actually like working with people who are a little scared because they think they don't have time because they're willing to take action. I have someone who think they have plenty of time, and I tell them, listen, we have to look at your budget. We have to dissect it. We have to maybe trim down some of the things that you like but might not need. And they're like, I'm not comfortable. Maybe later.
Not ready yet.
Maybe later.
I've got time.
I got time.
Right.
So those people that are closer and feel that nudge, we move based on greed or fear, as that's just our instinct.
Yes.
So sometimes that little fear gives people the push they need to take the action they need to take, that they should have taken sooner, but now they're willing to do it. So the tactical thing is sit down and dissect your last 3 months of expenses and highlight the things that are needs. Those are ones. Everything else you label as 2s and 3s. Needs, wants, really nice things to have. And we have to start cutting out those 3s temporarily.
Yeah.
Right? Because the goal is to have a short-term plan. You know, if you're going on a diet, you can't maybe sustain it forever. However, if you go on a diet and it's to jumpstart a 10-pound loss for 2 weeks, for a month, that is more achievable.
Right.
We do that with our finances. Listen, I'm not getting my nails done for the next few months, but it's when I hit this goal, I will reward myself with getting my nails done. So I think it's that tactically cutting back with a goal, with a set goal of I'm doing this for this time to achieve this.
Dayanara, I love that because when I hear you say that, I don't feel like straight deprivation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I can't get my nails done again ever.
That's it.
So what you're saying is this may be one of the things on my list that might have to go temporarily. But when I hit said goal, this is a way that I can celebrate and acknowledge myself.
Yeah.
I've put in
Something
the work.
to look forward to.
Absolutely. No, I certainly appreciate that. So Dayanara, in addition to cutting back expenses, which I know is very important, I know you and I have also talked about people taking some more, I hate to use the word drastic because that makes you feel a certain way too.
Like,
But people who have had to look at things like downsizing. You know, maybe you and your best friend or you and your sister are like, oh my gosh, we're maintaining 2 different households. Maybe we can come together and live together. Just kind of being really creative on how you can consolidate and end up achieving said goal. Yes. But again, thinking outside the box. So do you have clients who are using some different strategies like that?
I have a client that relocated to Spain. Just fortunately had the spouse that was from Spain. Just told me the cost of living is so much lower. They don't live a certain way like they do here with keeping up. It's more just living your life. So are you willing to step out of this America comfort zone? And do you have the will you take that risk? Will you take that jump? Is that something you want to consider, going somewhere else? Or like Janai said, stay local, but venture to another part of this country where cost of living is lower. Do that research. There are other parts of the country. You don't have to go far to find lower cost of living places. And I love that, going with a roommate or a friend, someone that you can partner your expenses with if you're staying where you are, right? You're staying with where you are, then yes, let's find a way to cut back, minimize, smaller home. Depending on where you are in Atlanta, I don't know. I know in New York City where I live, the public transportation was actually really good and you didn't need a car. You know, you're so attached to certain things, but when you do things differently, you'll be surprised.
Right. Yeah. When there's a goal at the end, then it doesn't feel like, again, this deprivation. Like I'm doing this so I can get where I said I want to be.
Exactly.
I'm thinking team on 3, let's go.
Let's go.
Like what do I need to do?
Well, she gave us a great plan and the process. And the thing is, the pandemic kind of created if you want to call it an opportunity for people to kind of really see,
Right.
what's happening and the downsizing.
Right.
So think about it like this. You're getting to downsize the way you want to, planning it out as opposed to where you may have to if something else takes place.
Right. And there's something about
love
living
that.
a simpler life,
Yeah.
that's actually freeing.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
It
one thing
is.
that I've learned.
It's not a whole
during
lot
the
of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just kind
I
of a
think it's
shift.
easier to live that simpler life in a different place, because it's almost like if I'm accustomed to a certain lifestyle where I am in a city, let's say, but I move to, in this area in Florida, we have Loxahatchee. You move out there and you live in a place where it's more farmland, less busy, and you're kind of changing everything altogether. So it's easier to adjust a lot of things at one time versus staying where you are and feeling left behind.
Right.
So it's more like of an adventure when you're going somewhere else versus staying where you are and almost like feel like a punishment. So the mindset is key regardless.
Right. The
I
only other
see it.
thing that I want to encourage people to do as we move on to our next group of folks who want to retire within that 5 years or so time frame is be open and don't take yourself out when it comes to identifying some additional ways to generate more income.
Yeah.
Yes.
Multiple streams.
Multiple streams.
Yeah.
And so that would be a game changer.
Yeah.
So I think it's an and versus an or.
Yeah.
Versus just saying, I
think
have
so
to
too.
cut back, I have to cut back, I have to cut back. But with all the skills and the gifts and the access, what are you leaving on the table?
Exactly.
That could be a game changer. And this could fund this other life that you're talking
Right.
about. Pay off your debt, whatever it is that's important to you in the context of getting ready.
That's a great idea. And that's what happened, like, say, real estate, for example. If you invest in real estate, especially if you invested earlier, see, this is like prime real estate now.
Right.
People that purchased homes years ago
Right.
are now reaping the benefits from those investments.
Right.
So that's one way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Takes a plan and a strategy.